So are you aware that there is, in addition to the sunset review process, that there's actually called a sunrise process that's used in the California Legislature? So in California, as in a number of other states, there's a so-called sunrise process, which naturally is the opposite of the sunset or repeal process. Basically, when establishing a new regulatory scheme for an occupation or a profession, a legislature, like in California, will proceed with what they call the sunrise process, which is basically when they assess a request for a new or even an enhanced occupational regulatory scheme. This is found in California law. In the government code, we have Article 8 with sections 9148 to 9148.8. And that Article 8 is titled Legislative Oversight of State Board Formation and Licensed Professional Practice. And there's a process established in the government code for reviewing new licensure boards and licensed professions in California. Section 9148 of the government code basically requires that any state board or category of licensed professional that's proposed for creation by the legislature is to be subject to this article, Article 8. Section 9142.2 defines the term state board to mean any administrative or regulatory board, commission, committee, council, association, or any other sort of authority whose members are appointed by the governor, the legislature, or both. However, there is an exception for any commissions created by the legislature under the Food and Agricultural Code. Then Section 9148.4 requires a plan to be developed prior to consideration by the legislature of legislation creating a new board or legislation creating a new category of licensed professional. And the plan is for the establishment and operation of the proposed state board or new category of licensed professional, and is required to be developed by the author of the legislation. And also Section 9148.4 actually specifies a list of items to be included in that plan in great detail. Then Section 9148.8 allows the appropriate policy committee of the legislature in California to evaluate a plan that's prepared pursuant to the requirement of 9148.7. And the chair of the policy committee may require that the Joint Sunset Review Committee actually evaluate and provide any recommendations on a plan that's been prepared and submitted, or whether there are other proposals or any legislative issues with the creation of a new state board. In addition, that Joint Sunset Review Committee is actually required to provide to the respective policy and fiscal committees of the California Legislature any evaluation and recommendations that they prepare. And if an appropriate policy committee doesn't evaluate the plan, then the joint committee evaluates the plan and provides a recommendation to the legislature. Now, the policy committees in both the Assembly and Senate can certainly require bill authors and sponsors of bills to complete a questionnaire and other evaluative information for those who are promoting the regulation. Basically, this questionnaire that the policy committees utilize is an objective tool where they try to collect and analyze relevant information to arrive at the best informed and supportable position or decision regarding the merits of the proposed regulatory scheme. The policy committees have said that state legislators and administrative officials are expected to weigh arguments regarding the necessity of regulation, determine the appropriate level of regulation, and select a set of standards that will assure competency in the profession. The sunrise process is patterned after similar regulatory practices in other states. In similar instances, the effort in those other states is to ascertain whether there exist a true and actual need for regulation of a profession or occupation. And as part of the Sunrise process in California, there are 9 specified criteria that are used to determine whether a profession or occupation needs to be regulated. And those 9 criteria are: will the unregulated practice harm or endanger the public? Existing protections that are available are insufficient. No alternatives to regulation will adequately protect the public. Regulation will alleviate existing problems. Practitioners operate independently. The functions and tasks of the occupation are clearly defined. The occupation is clearly distinguishable from other occupations that are already regulated. The occupation requires knowledge, skills, and abilities that are both teachable and testable. And then the 9th criteria is the economic impact of regulation is in fact justified. And again, this questionnaire has 3 major sections. And so based upon the answers to these questions and the review, then there is a level of regulation that would be specified, and the resulting regulatory scheme would be developed by the legislation. So that is basically the Sunrise process that begins at the outset of whether a profession or occupation needs to be regulated by the state of California.